Welcome everyone to Peace Within the Journey of Forgiveness. I have Tiana. What's going on, Tiana?
Nothing much. Good day to you. Thanks for having me.
I thank you for accepting the invitation. I thank you for coming on to allowing people to see your journey in forgiveness. But before we start, who is Tiana? Tell us a little bit about
Tiana. Well, I am Tiana. Hey, I don't know what to really say other than I am me. I love being me. I am into sports. I'm a former athlete, basketball. I am currently a mom of a 17-year-old boy, and I am a wife of approaching 8 years in September. I work-wise, I work with juvenile offenders on multiple for my particular agency, but an array of different avenues within my agency. I attend New Home Baptist Church. I'm on the dance ministry, also a part of the marriage ministry. I'm into crafts, DIYs. I have a side hustle business called Creative Haven. So I'm into the parties of such sorts for graduations. I do T-shirts. I'm just an array of a person who likes what I see, tries to implement anything that I see, but definitely into the craft world. So that's a little bit about me.
Okay, give us some more about Creative Haven. Would you say Haven?
Creative Haven. So within that name, it is my name, affectionately T. Hay is in Creative Haven. But so I've been crafting for a very long time. I kind of get avenues from both my mom and my dad. So my mom, she sews and things of that nature. So she taught me that tool. So I have that in my tool belt. And then my dad does construction / home remodeling, and so things being built and put together, things that I like. And so, just growing up, I kind of got into wanting to make T-shirts, and then it was pamper cakes, and T-shirts have always kind of been a thing, and so that continues. But then as I just wanted to be more creative, so I kind of tapped into balloon artistry, making things for my son and things for his athletic teams. I use a Cricut. I use other, craft making tools to, kind of help me with these things. But that's just, a part of who I am. I love to make different things and just, help people bring their visions to life. Whether it be a T-shirt or something for graduation or something for their graduation parties. My son, he graduates in 2026, and so I kind of have my plan already laid out of what it will be, whether he likes it or not. Like he doesn't have a say so in that. But that's just a part of who I am, and wanting people to feel loved and celebrated at their respective events. By putting just a little tab of my creativity to it. So that is Creative Haven.
And how they can get in contact with you?
I do have a Instagram account, and it is Creative Haven, CreativeHayven. Is my hashtag or page. And so you can see some of the things that I've done. I'm not a great poster. I'm getting better with that. But as my clients keep telling me, well, I didn't see what you did for me. And so I'm trying to get better with, being able to post those things. But yeah, and I feel, challenged when people bring me things that I may have not done before. And so then it taps into my creativity to make me want to be like, oh, okay, oh, I can figure this out, and so to me, that's a little bit of my therapy, which also kind of helps me with, getting over and through, different challenges in my life. And so, I use it as a multiple of things. So that is
I'm glad.
creativity.
Thank you. I'm glad you said it
Mhm.
because I was listening as you was talking and explaining your projects and your business. I said, okay, she can handle challenges, and that's good as a person to take it head on and not say, "Ooh, girl, I'm sorry, I can't do this project," but
Mhm.
not steer away. And that's part of the journey. So help us understand, how did you start this walk of journey of forgiveness and tackle the the unforgiveness?
Um, I can't say that I have tackled it. I can just say that I deal with it and, have figured out my own mechanisms of managing it. So, I, I can kind of look back to see that maybe the first forgiveness thing, that I, have recollection memory of is when my parents, divorced. That was something at a young age I really didn't understand. Um, and so I guess I feel like this has just always been me, but I've always asked questions, when I don't understand. And so that was something that I just kept doing. Like I kept asking questions. And I don't think it was until older that I, fully understood, but it was definitely something that I'm glad that I did ask questions for. So I could start trying to figure out, how do I now handle this aspect of my life, no longer living with my parents, under one roof. And so, due to some of the things that happened, like I had to get to a point where I didn't feel like I had to choose a parent. But I definitely had to be able to say, okay, how do I move forward knowing what I know and still being able to still show love to both of my parents and be respectful to both of my parents. And so it just became one of those things where it was just like a day by day thing. And then I guess just getting older and asking questions, that kind of helped me as well. But being grounded in faith, um, that was also like prayer, through prayer, that I will always just pray that whatever the outcome will be, it would be the best. For myself, and our family. Although as a woman now, I definitely can see how hurt my mom was and how, although she never showed it as a woman now, I, was able to kind of see like, oh, okay. And to be honest, I really have to commend her because there's some things that I don't think that I could have forgiven or could have gotten over. But I see how she has handled it. Um, and I kind of just take my, I guess get my strength from her because I'm just like, I mean, not to say that she's better or equal or whatever, but I'm just like, well, she got through it, and talking to her as an adult, she's just like, clearly God, her faith in God, and the consistency of knowing that she still had two children to raise, kind of continue to push her forward, despite all that would happen between her and my biological father.
Mm, thank you. Can we
Mhm.
can we go back to your childhood and give us a understanding of your emotions, your feelings when you heard your mom and your dad come to you and your brother and said, "We, in my words, we done." But
Mhm.
how did they say it? And
So I remember very vaguely one day, we were at my dad's house or our house at that time. And I don't remember how old I was, but I know I was like, I wound up going to, when we moved, I went to school, I was in the second grade. So however old you are at that time. And I remember going to my grandmother's house. I don't remember the conversation that my mother had with me before, but I just remember going to my grandmother's house, which was down the street. And I informed her, I was like, "Hey, grandma, we're moving." And she, looked at me puzzled. And I was like, "Yeah, you didn't know we were moving?" And she was just like, "No." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I walked back, to the house. And so I then remember my dad showing up and was like, "Daddy, are you packing your stuff too? Because we got to go." And he was just like, "What are you talking about?" And then I think at that moment, I clearly had spilled the beans, and, my mother and whoever else was there to help us move, they didn't stop. The beat didn't stop. Like, we kept packing, we kept putting stuff. And then I just remember being at the new house. Like, so, that in between stuff, I don't really remember that, but I then just remember being at the new house. And um, I remember I didn't see my father. And I just kept, asking my mom, like, "Where's daddy?" And she was just like, she didn't know because we no longer would live with him. And so I was like, okay. And then it came to a point where I kept asking and I kept asking. And she was just like, I think she got tired of me asking and was just like, she was like, "All right, this ain't something I can keep doing." So I remember one evening she, told me my brother to get ourselves together, and then we went to the location where my father was, and she told him to explain it to us of what was going on. Um, I don't remember that conversation either. I just remember like the events. And then I do remember, having to, from there, I think my dad wound up getting a pager because I kept saying, "I will call you," and you never answered. But, at that time it was just house phones. So, he wound up getting a pager. And then, we just started like, spending the summers with him. Like, so then that was our time with him. And then we, stayed with our mom during the school year. And that's kind of how it went for a very long time. Maybe till we got about to like high school. And then, things changed, but not drastically to where we didn't see our dad. It was, me and my brother, we were in sports. And so some things just wasn't working out, schedule wise. And, by that time I started playing basketball and then I was traveling. And so, through that, I think that too was a part of, my journey and healing of, one, being busy, but finding something that I started to love, that I, pulled myself into, um, as an outlet, but then, got good at and just continued to, stay in that avenue of basketball.
Yeah, you good, but I ain't taking no challenges though. So I can smoke it.
I'm not as good as I used to be, but I mean, age and I haven't played in a while. But I talk trash all day. I'll tell you, I'll whoop you in a heartbeat. But it depends on how my body feel that day. Whether what I can get out there to do.
No, that's right. So I know you that you was a daddy's girl, and just telling us your story about your mom being separated from your dad, and you're going on a journey to forgive, I guess, both of your parents, and like, look, you just broke up our home. And so how did you show your love to both, to your mom and your father?
Well, I will say, I don't know. Like, again, I don't know that I didn't know who to blame, right? And I don't feel like I needed to blame either. I just knew that the dynamics that I was used to changed. And so in that change, again, like, I just consistently asked questions because I was very unclear. Being the youngest out of the two, I don't know if my brother realized or understood a little more than me, but, I mean, I would ask him and he would, kind of shoved me off just because I think he too, we both had to deal with such a serious situation and, not knowing, I guess, or not having the right tools. I do remember, I do remember my mom taking me to therapy. I do remember that. I don't think I went often because I only remember going one time. But I do think that may have been a recommendation and that, she did, she took me. But I think I gave her more hell than anything, and I don't know why. But I guess just because, I lived with her and I saw her more. Um, and so maybe just forgiving and understanding that this was our new norm now, right? And so being able to have that was definitely different. But I do think that they, both gave 100% of their effort to make sure that, one, we didn't go without, two, that they were a part of our lives, or more so my dad. But his profession too kind of, uh, it just didn't allow him to attend a lot of our events. But I am a daddy's girl, and I don't. There's bits and pieces of things that, again, that I remember from my childhood. I do, remember that he used to take me to the babysitter all the time, every day. And so, the winks and the mirror that he used to do, and I would try to, mimic it back. And I guess, for a long time, I just kind of held on to those memories versus the disruption of our family. And not that, I guess, I would say I had to forgive because I didn't have a choice. And it wasn't like I wanted to bash him or my mom. It was just, not understanding. And then as I got older, as a young adult, and I was just like, oh, okay, I now see how, you may not want to speak to a person because, you feel disrespected. And then, understanding the circumstances. But I've never gotten to the point where, like I asked them any further deeper questions than I guess like the surface of things that I asked when I was younger. Because at that point, I was good with how things were. I could tell that, I still saw my dad and there was no major lack in that. And then, living with my mom, it was just like, I saw her every day. And so, but I think, again, becoming a little more rebellious when, becoming a teen because you think you know everything and, wanting to do things and, just their parenting styles were different. And so, I would always know that my dad, as I always told my mom, that he had my back. And that he would let me do primarily anything I wanted to do versus my mom, who had the structure and the discipline. And so it was just like, well, if I can get away from her to him, then I know I could, basically do what I wanted to do. And so I played those cards a few times, but then it was just like, it's really, I ain't really about that. And I didn't want to play the two, because I was like, at some point, it's very disrespectful. And then I always remember my mom would say, don't worry, when you have children, you're going to get that 10 times fold. So I was just like, Lord, if what I put her through, I was like, no, maybe not. Maybe I'll figure out how not to do this. So, and so, I guess I just kind of learned how to see it for what it was. I didn't feel the lack of love. I didn't feel the lack of attention because at that point, by that time, technology had advanced, and so I was still able to get in touch with my dad. Whenever we wanted or needed anything, it was no issues with seeing him and things of that nature. And so it kind of just, to me, kind of evolved in its own way. But I think that too has helped me, as an adult, to be able to try to see two sides of every story, and then figure out how the best way to maneuver from there. And so that's that part.
So coming from experiencing that with your mom and your dad separating, how would you speak to the viewers to help children who's dealing with the same situation that you dealt with when you was younger?
So one, well, let me be transparent about this. So it kind of the same resonated with my son's father and myself. We weren't married, but nevertheless, my son is here. And so that too wasn't a relationship that led to marriage, but definitely communication and being transparent. Sometimes it's hard for somebody to really own up to what they did or their part, and they want to blame the other person. And so I know having to similarly do the same thing with my son. Like, we both had to sit down and, kind of explain to him. But he was much younger than me when we separated. But again, still growing. I think he still, he still had questions. And so just still trying to provide him with the same kind of guidance I feel like I had, which was communicate, like tell the kid like what's really going on. We tend to sometimes negate how smart children are, and so now I was like, well, I definitely don't want to hide anything from him. I didn't feel like he needed to know all of the aspects in which, transpired this, the separation. But I was like, within time, and as he gets older, I think he would be able to then fully understand, it to the greatest degree. But, just be transparent with him. And then, just show him that he won't lack, the tension, the love, the affection, of either. But then if it happens, and unfortunately that did kind of happen, for myself, and I'm just like, I then had to be somewhat both, a mom figure, but yet a dad figure to some extent. As I know, we as women can't be men. And I've had to, kind of let him know that, I can't really teach you how to be a man because I'm not a man. But I can, continue to pour in, great morals and values and principles, that you can hold true to, to yourself so that you can, make great decisions, be around, stay in positive environments and, with, other young people who are, more like of your same, and staying focused, faith, spirituality and church and, keep just trying to keep him grounded as well. But I really believe communication plays a major factor. Positive communication, because you can be negative in communicating as well, which isn't, that doesn't necessarily help. And kind of going back and forth, with yelling and screaming and disagreements, that is needed, but it may not be needed in front of the child. So that they don't get that perspective of this is how you solve problems. But again, this is a part of my journey and what I've learned, because I can't say I started out that way. But I've definitely saw how those some instances, things played out where I was like, yeah, I don't even think, this wasn't great for my son. This wasn't a good exposure situation to him. But as he got older, I think he started to fully see, and I think it's not until they get to an age where you just like, maybe now you can make a decision on your own of, whether you want to quote unquote believe one parent over the other, or you just kind of accept like this is my life and this is, what I've been taught and how to, try to move forward. But then these may be some lessons that I can too take into my relationships, kind of moving forward.
Mm. Well, I thank you because you summed it up, because I was going to ask you that, like, you learned from your mom and dad, and as you got older and became a parent of your own, you took some of the things that you learned from them, so your son won't experience or go through what you have experienced. When in your journey of forgiveness and being a parent, and now you said you're a wife now, how do you take your past relationship to be better in being a wife with your husband?
Well, that's a loaded question. Only because, like, as of now, I've been single longer than I've been married, right? And so I'm a very independent person, right? And so sometimes it's been hard when, I've had to share things. I've had to initially, I'm used to doing everything, and then sometimes, when you partner up, you feel like this person can, help with the load. But then sometimes I can again speak for myself. Like, I'm gonna give an example of the grass being cut. So at my old house, I used to cut the grass, and it wasn't all the time, right? And so I learned that because there was nobody else to do it, right? And so I'm just like, okay, so I got a lawnmower, I got an edger, Yard wasn't that big, but I took pride in, now finding another way to exhale, right? And so I think I've also, and speaking of this, I feel like I also just kind of find therapy in different aspects that I've, throughout my life. And so that was one. I took, I could put my music on. I could, I didn't necessarily know what I wanted it to look like. So it ain't have to have lines and crisscrossed and, designs. As long as it was cut and neat, it was fine for me. And so now when we transition to our new house, the yard is much bigger, and I have yet to cut the grass here. And I'm just like, yep, bruh, that's not my duties no more. Like, you can take it on full blown. And so, not that I won't, but I'm just like, okay, that's at least one aspect of, trying to share duties and responsibilities of the house. And so, it's still hard though sometimes to just kind of let go of certain things, just because I have been doing it for so long, by myself. But I do feel that my journey is definitely different from my husband's, only because his parents were married for 51 years. And so, although I didn't, my parents weren't married that long, my mom did remarry. And so I do have a stepfather or bonus dad who I've seen, and, in our lives for, I don't even remember how old or long they've been married. But to me, I've just seen both aspects. I've come from a divorced family, and then, a blended to now a blended family. And so my husband, has only really had his mom and dad. And so I know that aspect too, of being in a family where, you have a two-parent household. But nevertheless, it still has just been, to me, it's, adjusting. I think communication also plays another factor, a major factor in that. And then, just support, because I do have a son, and then my husband does have a daughter. And so, being able to talk about how our blended family will potentially, work, kind of came into play. And so I was able to kind of explain to him, like, again, I've come from this environment, and so I know what it's like, or I have my version of how I dealt with things. And it may not look the same for ours, blended family, but, at least we could give it a try. And so, I think I think it has been helpful, because I've just had two different versions, of life, versus where he may, have this one version, and what his way where in his brain he might think that this one way is just the way, but, he too has had to deal with, um, different aspects of his first marriage, and, um, that divorce, and then, again, now a blended family. And so, I think it just has allowed me to be more of a well-rounded person, to be able to see situations from different angles, to be able to apply, add, subtract, be like, oh, okay, well, we can try this. Well, if that don't work, then maybe we can, try this, per our family dynamics.
Mm. Well, thank you, Tiana. I can definitely identify, especially with being single and being independent. And I literally was just talking to God the other day about it, like, Lord, this gonna be a transition for me. Because I'm so used to coming in the house whatever time, or, I don't have to answer to anybody, And also, I thank you because, it gives insight. My mom and my father wasn't married, but, they was doing their own thing. So I thank you for I thank you for sharing and allowing us to hear your story. And I pray that the viewers will understand, especially the marriage couples who may be separated or thinking about separation, that they're also taking consideration the child and how the home, the home is not balanced, how it can shift the child in their life and they're, growing in life situations. So thank you. We
You're
appreciate
welcome.
you.
You're welcome.
Is
Thanks for
there
having
anything
me.
else huh?
I said thank you for having me and
Yes,
asking me for this
yes,
opportunity.
yes, this was great to hear because a lot of people don't understand, blending families, being single. You say you were single longer than you was
I
married,
was.
transitioning that, looking at somebody talking about where you going, and you like, oh my bad, I
Right.
forgot. Oh yeah,
I
I'm
mean, yeah, it definitely is a challenge. I mean, I think now technology just allows us to do things a little differently, than traditionally. Um, But I will say it also depends on your partner, right? And so all partners aren't so controlling of where, I mean, you can say where you went or what's your plans for the week, just throw it out there and be like, oh, okay, well, I got this and that to do. And you're like, oh, okay. So now your partner is already aware of whatever you may potentially have to do for the week. And so where you ain't got to keep checking in. Oh, don't forget today I got to do this. I mean, if your partner is one of those people that they don't remember, then that might be, something you need to do. But then it could be like, you know what, maybe I'll just text them, this information so that they, will know. But I also feel like communication in our climate has heightened, right? And so initially we didn't always like say, hey, I'm at work or I'm leaving work. But it wasn't until more so like after COVID that it became more important to let somebody know where you were. Especially, my husband being African American male was just like, anything can happen. And not to say that anything couldn't happen to me, but, because we don't do that, share your location type thing like that. To me, that's, we don't do that. And I feel like at some instance, to each his own, but that's something that we do. But I would like to know if potentially the last place you were. So if something does happen, or if I don't hear from you in a certain amount of time, like, okay, well, this is where he last was going. This is then when he said where he was going. So in between there could definitely, you might be in there, right? And then I do think that sharing locations can be, of a benefit, for incidents and accidents. And so, not to say that our way is right, but that's just not how we roll. And I just feel like any, whatever boundaries and, kind of standards you all have for each other, then, you kind of can work it out. But again, then if someone says, you know what, I think we need to, share locations, because maybe something, in the world has heightened to where we now need to do that. But, I mean, again, it's to each his own. But yeah, that transitioning from being single to married that's a whole nother topic. But it can be done, and you have to give yourself grace, and I think you have to ask your partner for the grace as well, because I'm assuming that they potentially have been single for some time as well, and so the adjustment dynamics would definitely be something that you definitely both have to adjust to.
yeah. Wow.
So yeah.
Thank you,
Yeah.
thank you. This is very informative, and most of all, just life grooming us, allowing us to learn these learn
Yeah.
lessons, taking life and not allow it to. I always say, not allow it to harden the heart, but keep the heart flesh. Keep the heart in a place where you can just love and give people grace and mercy, like you said. So thank you again, Tia.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
I appreciate you so much. And now let me tell everybody, this is my cousin. My cousin, my oldest cousin. Yes. We used to hit the street, but now she's married.
And I don't understand that, because I still like to hit the streets. I can tell him, look, hey, because we need, as married people, we need breaks too, right? And so, that's why sometimes I do, then you just need an exhale moment from, your day-to-day stuff too. So being able to still kind of hang out, with your hangout partners, it don't hurt nobody. It don't hurt nobody. They understand because guess what? He hang out too without me sometimes. So I just be like, all right, well, I'm gonna find something to do, And I don't always want it to be around my kids. So I'm just like, I need to. I have recently learned that I had to bring and figure Tiana out again. Tiana likes to dance. Tiana loves to sing. She loves to go out. She likes to eat. And so those type of things, I'm just like, guess what? I started to feel that I was being, I don't want to say burdened, but heavy loaded with wife duties, mama duties. And I started feeling like it was just like suffocating me. And I was just like, I got to start figuring out what helps me, and I was like, oh, line dancing is my thing. And so I'm just like, hey, I'm going to this day party, or I'm going here, or this event came up for my college. And, I'm like, I need to, be able to, still kind of exhale as well. And then wheeling on back and be like, okay, so I got to put my mama hat back on, got to put my wife hat back on, and, continue to do those things. But sometimes it's good to take them hats off and just remember who you are.
That was profound. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You guys, thank you for listening. Don't forget to go to Tiana's Instagram, and your Instagram is
Creative Haven.
There you go. If you need some balloons, some birthday decorations, some wedding decor, whatever you need, even if she don't know how to do it, she gonna.
I will figure it out. Right.
Let's support Black-owned business and support women Black businesses as well. All right, you guys, don't forget to like, share, and also subscribe.